the mud-covered shadow. The rain didn't stop. It poured from the dark sky, washing down the trees and turning the ground into thick, heavy mud. Evan, a human scavenger, walked slowly through the ruined forest. He wore an old jacket, heavy boots, and carried a small tool bag on his side. His eyes scanned every broken tree and burned metal piece. He was looking for something, anything useful from the old alien dropship that had crashed weeks ago. Evan was used to being alone. He worked in silence, with only the sound of rain and the wind in the trees. But this day was different. He saw something move. At first, he thought it was a large animal, something crawling in the mud, slowly, painfully. But when he looked closer, his heart skipped a beat. It wasn't an animal. It was a person, or something close to one. A thin figure dragged itself from a broken tree trunk. Its skin was covered in thick, brown mud. The body looked weak, starved, shaking with every move. Long, wet hair hung over its face, hiding its eyes. Evan could not tell if it was male or female, alien or human. Then the figure looked up. Two glowing blue eyes stared at him. Not angry, not afraid, just empty. Like someone who had nothing left inside. Evan took a step back. His hand moved toward the small stun gun on his belt. He didn't know if this creature was dangerous, but then something stopped him. The figure tried to speak but choked. No words came, just a soft, broken sound. Then it collapsed, face first in the mud. Evan stood frozen for a second. The smart thing would be to walk away, leave it. It wasn't his problem, but he couldn't, not after seeing those eyes. He rushed, forward, pushing through the thick mud. He reached the figure and turned it over carefully. It was a female. Her body was bruised, ribs showing through skin. She wore nothing, just chains on her wrists now broken. Mud was stuck to her everywhere, but beneath the dirt, he could see strange, soft lines on her skin. Alien markings, glowing faintly. Hey, can you hear me? Evan asked. She blinked once. She was still alive. Without thinking more, Evan lifted her into his arms. She was light, too light, like she hadn't eaten in days. His trailer wasn't far, just beyond the hill. By the time he reached the trailer, the rain was still falling. He placed her gently on a soft blanket near the heater. His hands were shaking. He had never seen someone in such a broken state. He brought warm water in, a bowl and a cloth. Slowly, carefully, he started to clean the mud off her skin. With each wipe, more of her true form appeared. She was alien. Not one of the war breeds, though. Her face was smooth and delicate, like a mix of human and something celestial. Her skin was a soft gray, her hair silver when dry. Glowing lines moved faintly across her arms and back like flowing tattoos. She had bruises and cuts. Her lips were cracked. Her feet were torn from walking barefoot through the forest. Still, she didn't move. Her eyes remained closed. Evan kept working. He wrapped her in a warm blanket and gave her a bit of water, drop by drop. She drank weakly, barely swallowing. He didn't know who she was or what had happened. But one thing was clear. She had been abandoned. Left to die. He sat down across the room and watched her breathe. She looked peaceful now. But he could still see the pain in her face. That night he didn't sleep. In the middle of the night he heard a sound, a soft whisper. He opened his eyes and looked toward the blanket. The alien woman was awake. She looked at him, her eyes wide, glowing faintly in the dark. She tried to sit up but winced in pain. "Don't," Evan said softly. "You're safe. Just rest." She looked confused, like she didn't understand his words. But then she whispered something, one word. "Why?" Evan blinked. "Why what?" She looked at her arms, the clean blanket, the small heater keeping her warm. "Why? Help me?" she asked, voice dry and weak. Evan didn't know what to say. He looked down for a moment, then replied, "Because no one else did." Outside, the storm had stopped. But inside the trailer, something new had begun. A moment of trust. A moment that would change both their lives forever. Morning light entered through the small window of Evan's trailer. The forest outside was quiet, only soft drips of water falling from the trees after the heavy night rain. Inside, the alien woman lay still under the blanket. Her breathing was steady now. Her silver hair, once tangled and dirty, lay softly around her face. The mud was gone, revealing skin that shimmered slightly under the light, almost like starlight trapped beneath her flesh. Evan moved carefully. He didn't want to scare her again. He had placed a bowl of warm broth next to her, along with some soft fruit pieces. He didn't know her kind's diet, but it was the gentlest food he had. When she stirred, he stayed back, sitting on a crate across the room, waiting. She opened her eyes slowly. For a moment, her body tensed, and her hands gripped the blanket. But then she saw Evan, not moving, not threatening. Her body relaxed just slightly. He gave her a soft smile and spoke in a slow, calm voice. "Food, for you. Not poisoned. Promise." She didn't speak. Her eyes shifted between the bowl and him, unsure. Then with shaking hands she reached forward. She picked up a piece of fruit, smelled it, and took a small bite. Her expression didn't change at first, but she ate more, faster now. Hunger had taken over. Evan felt relief watching her eat. She still had the will to survive. After she finished, he brought more warm water and sat closer, just a few feet away. He didn't touch her this time. Instead, he showed her the cloth and pointed to her arm, asking permission with his eyes. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. He began cleaning again. There were more strange markings on her body. Thin, glowing, lines that pulsed faintly like veins. They weren't tattoos, they seemed alive. Underneath the filth, her skin was flawless and unscarred, except for the deep bruises around her wrists and ankles where the broken chains had dug in. "You were chained," he whispered. "But not anymore." She looked at him, puzzled. Her voice was low and rough. "You, human?" He nodded. "Evan, that's my name." She stared at him, then repeated, "Evan." He smiled. "Do you have a name?" Her lips moved, as if trying to remember. Then softly, almost uncertainly, she whispered, "Shali." Evan nodded gently. "Shali. That's a beautiful name." She seemed confused by the compliment, as if no one had ever said kind words to her before. Her eyes dropped to her. Lapos, after some silence, she asked, "Where is this?" "Outskirts of Zone 47, Evan replied. "Old mining forest. Abandoned. I live here alone. Safer this way." Shali looked around. Her eyes rested on the small metal stove, the tools on the shelves, the dusty blanket. Then she looked down at her clean hands. "You washed me." "Yes," Evan said honestly. "You were cold and covered in mud. You could have died." She blinked slowly. "No one ever did that before, not for me." Evan didn't know what to say. His chest felt heavy hearing her words. She wasn't just abandoned. She had been broken long before the mud, long before the forest. "I don't know what happened to you," he said quietly. "But I won't hurt you." Shali stared at him. "Why?" He shook his head. "Because you're not trash. Because someone should have helped you a long time ago." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she quickly turned her head away, hiding them. Her shoulders shook a little, but she didn't let a sound escape. Evan looked away, giving her space. After some time, she turned back to him. They threw me from the sky ship, called me useless, said I failed the Queen." Evan's eyes narrowed. "You were part of the royal fleet?" She nodded slowly. "Royal attendant? I saw things I was not meant to see. They blamed me for it. I was silent, but they still punished." Evan clenched his fist. The galaxy was cruel to those who couldn't fight back. "You don't belong to them anymore," he said softly. They don't get to decide your worth. Shali looked at him for a long moment. Then she whispered, I don't know how to live free. You'll learn, he said. We'll take it one day at a time. She gave the faintest smile, a small curve of her lips that lasted only a second, but it was there. Her eyes no longer looked empty. Not fully. That night, Evan gave her clean clothes, soft old fabric stitched by hand. They didn't fit perfectly, but she hugged them close like they were made of gold. As she lay down again, eyes growing heavy with sleep, she whispered something in her own alien language. Evan didn't understand the words, but the tone was soft, grateful. Outside, stars appeared through the breaking clouds. Inside, for the first time in years, Shali slept without fear. The next morning, the sun rose slow and pale over the wet treetops. Birds chirped in the distance. The world looked calm, but inside Evan's chest, there was a strange pressure building. He stepped out of the trailer to check the perimeter like he always did. But today, something felt wrong. The air was too still. No drone buzz, no signal interference. But he had been a soldier once. He knew silence could be louder than noise. Back inside, Shali was awake and sitting on the edge of the blanket. She had tied the too big shirt around her waist and folded the sleeves. She looked cleaner now. Her hair, though tangled, fell like soft threads of silver over her shoulders. But her eyes, they still held the shadow of fear. Evan handed her a warm drink. She took it with both hands, careful not to spill. She seemed stronger now, but something in her body still trembled, like her nerves never rested. They will come, she whispered. Evan froze. Who? Shali looked toward the window. The hunters, bounty teams. I saw one ship pass above us. I recognized the sound. It's not military. It's private. He stepped closer. How do you know? They used to take me on missions, she said quietly. I know how they move, how they hide. Evan stared at her. She wasn't just a royal servant. She had been trained, watched, maybe used. They're tracking you? He asked. Shali nodded. They want proof I'm dead. I'm a problem. A secret they want to bury forever. What secret? Shali looked away. Her voice dropped low. I heard the Queen make a deal. Sell off alien children to war labs. She thought I was loyal. But I heard. I ran. Evan's hands balled, into fists. They punished you for that? I was chained, beaten, and thrown out of the ship while it was low above the forest. They thought I'd die. She touched her wrist, where a scar still glowed faintly. But I didn't. Evan stepped outside again. He scanned the sky. If they were sending bounty teams, they wouldn't knock on the door. They'd come fast and hard. He needed to prepare. Back inside, he moved fast, packing supplies, tools, a short-range scrambler to block trackers. We have to go, he said. Shali stood slowly. Her legs still shook a little, but she nodded. I will not slow you down. You're not baggage, Evan said. You're the reason I'm doing this. They left the trailer and disappeared into the deeper woods. By midday, they reached an old comms bunker Evan had once repaired during his military days. It was buried under moss and roots, almost invisible now. He cracked open the hatch and helped Shali climb inside. Inside, it smelled of rust and old fire, but it was dry, hidden, and safe for now. As she sat down, Evan checked the old radar. The screen blinked, slow but steady. He adjusted a few knobs. A red dot appeared. They're close, he muttered. 5 clicks out. Small ship. Shali looked at the screen, her eyes sharp now. 1 team. That means they think I'm weak. Evan raised an eyebrow. Are you? Her mouth twitched, almost a smile. No. She stood, walked to the small mirror cracked on the wall. Her eyes studied her reflection for a long time. Then she reached behind her neck and tapped something. Glowing blue patterns lit up across her skin like a circuit map. Her spine glowed faintly, and strange alien symbols ran down her arms. "What is that?" Evan asked, stepping closer. "My royal brand," she said. "They burned it into me when I became a personal servant. Only royals or high-class warriors had one. It marked me as owned." "Then why activate it now?" Shali turned, eyes glowing fiercely. "Because now, it will be seen. I'm no longer hidden. If they're going to hunt me, I won't hide like prey." Evan nodded slowly. She wasn't the broken creature he found in the mud anymore. She was standing tall now, angry, awake, and ready. Suddenly, the radar beeped. Again, another red dot. "A second ship, great," Evan muttered. "They brought friends." Shali stepped closer to him. "You don't have to fight for me. You gave me warmth. That is enough." He looked at her and shook his head. "No, it's not. You deserve more than warmth. You deserve to live." Outside, the sound of engines cut through the trees. They were here, but this time Shali would not run, and Evan would not let her fight alone. The forest above the bunker remained quiet, but inside, the air was tight with tension. Evan sat on the floor, checking the charge level on his old plasma pistol. It wasn't much, but it could buy them time. Across from him, Shali rested against the metal wall, her body half lit by the soft glow of her brand lines. She was silent still, but not scared. The silence between them wasn't cold anymore, it was calm, steady, like two people sitting at the edge of a storm, neither ready to say goodbye. Evan glanced at her. "How's your leg?" She looked down. Her ankle was still swollen from their walk through the forest, but she nodded. "It will hold." He gave a short smile. "You sure?" "I've walked through worse," she said softly. "In chains, on bloodied stone." Evan's hands froze on his gun. His eyes met hers. There were no tears in her voice, no trembling. Only truth. "I'm sorry," he said after a moment. She tilted her head. "For what?" "For what they did to you. For letting monsters wear crowns." Shali looked at him for a long time. Then she said something he didn't expect. "You're the first person who looked at me and didn't see property." Evan's throat tightened. He stood and walked to a small cabinet in the back of the bunker. From it he pulled a clean shirt, soft and gray, stitched by hand, and a brush. He offered both to her. She looked at them surprised. "Why?" He shrugged. "You cleaned up well, but your hair's still a mess." For a second, she didn't move. Then, gently, she took the shirt and held it against her chest like it was something precious. "Thank you." Evan sat beside her and started brushing her hair. It was quiet work, slow and careful. The silver strands felt like silk, and with every stroke, more mud and knots fell away. Shali closed her eyes. No one had ever touched her this way before. Not with greed, not with fear. Only kindness. "I used to hate my hair," she whispered. "They made me grow it long, said it looked beautiful when I bowed." He stopped brushing for a moment, then kept going, slower. "You're not bowing, now." "No," she said, opening her eyes. "And I won't again." They stayed like that for a while, in that cold steel bunker with death flying just above them. A strange warmth bloomed. Not romantic, not yet, but real, deep. Like two broken souls learning how to breathe again. When he finished brushing, she leaned her head gently against his shoulder. "Evan," she said, voice barely a breath, "if I die tomorrow, would you remember me?" He looked down at her glowing eyes, soft against the firelight of her brand lines. "I'd never forget you," he replied. "Even if I tried," Shali smiled. "A real one this time. Not forced, not pained, just pure." But the moment didn't last. The radar beeped once, then twice. A red dot blinked at the edge of the screen. "They're close," Evan said. Shali stood rolling her shoulder. "Then it's time." Evan handed her a small dagger, alien-made, light and sharp. Found it near the wreck last week. Thought it was junk. Looks like it belongs to you. She took it with care, recognizing the royal crest on the blade's handle. Her fingers wrapped around it with quiet strength. You really are different. From other humans, she said. How so? You don't ask what I can give, you only ask what I need. He looked at her. And what do you need right now? She didn't blink. A partner. He nodded. Then you have one. They moved, through the back of the bunker, along the underground tunnel Evan had dug years ago during his time off-grid. At the end of the tunnel was a small lookout point that opened just above the tree line. Shali crouched beside him. One ship, 6 heat signatures. They're moving in formation, not military, but trained. Evan peered through the scope. Mercenaries. Probably paid well to make you disappear. She held the dagger tighter. Then we make a noise they'll never forget. Evan grinned. Now you're talking like a human. She looked at him sideways. And that's a good thing? It means you've got fight in you. And what about you, Evan? Why fight for me? He didn't smile this time. He just said, because you're worth it. The sky darkened. Again. The enemy was coming. But so was something else. Stronger than weapons. Louder than fear. A bond. Not of power, not of command, but of choice. Shali and Evan stood side by side as the wind rose around them. Not as a servant and a soldier, but as 2 equals. The forest held its breath. From the hill above the bunker, Evan and Shali watched the tree line. Shadows moved between the trunks, slow, calculated. The mercenaries were close now. Their black armor reflected faint light. No emblems, no names, just paid hunters trained to kill. Evan counted 6. 2 scouts in front, 3 at the flanks and 1 behind, holding a motion tracker. These weren't amateurs. They moved in silence like wolves. Shali crouched beside him, her dagger gripped in her left hand. Her silver hair was tied back, with a strip of cloth. Her glowing markings had dimmed, hidden beneath the simple gray shirt. She was no longer the weak woman he had found in the mud. She was a survivor now, and she would not run again. They're sweeping in a spiral, she whispered. Trying to flush us out? Evan nodded. Let them come closer. He tapped his wristband. Tiny charges he had buried earlier blinked to life around the path. Boom. The first explosion lifted one of the scouts into the air. The other dived too, late. Shrapnel tore through his armor and he screamed before going silent. The formation broke. Now, Evan said, standing up from behind the rocks. He aimed and fired a bolt into the nearest soldier. The blast struck him in the chest, not enough to kill, but enough to stagger. Shali moved like lightning. She leapt down from the ridge and landed silently behind one of the attackers. Her blade sliced clean across his thigh. He dropped, and she delivered another sharp strike, to his helmet. The man slumped unconscious. The remaining mercenaries fired back. Energy bolts hissed past Evan's head. He rolled to cover and returned fire. Shali dashed forward using the trees like shields. Her body moved with grace and speed Evan had never seen in combat. She wasn't just surviving, she was fighting for her life, and his. But they were, still outnumbered. A blast hit Evan's side. His shield belt flickered and died. He fell behind a tree, coughing from the shock. Blood trickled from his arm. One of the mercs moved in for the kill. But before he could pull the trigger, Shali flew at him from the side. Her dagger drove into his chest plate. He roared and grabbed her, throwing her hard into the dirt. She landed hard, her arm twisting unnaturally. But she didn't cry out. Instead, she crawled forward, putting herself between the enemy and Evan. No, she hissed. You don't touch him. The mercenary raised his weapon. She's still breathing, he muttered. Target stronger than reported. Then he made a mistake. He stepped closer, unaware Evan had pulled a backup mini blaster from his boot. A shot rang out, point blank to the merc's visor. The man collapsed instantly, Shali turned and stared at Evan, her breathing ragged. "Why didn't you run?" He coughed, pressing a hand to his bleeding arm. "Because you didn't." She smiled through the pain. Stubborn human. They both got up slowly. 4 enemies down, 2 left. The final ones were smarter. They backed off, regrouping behind the trees. "We need to end this," Evan said, gripping his side. "They'll call in reinforcements if we don't." Shali closed her eyes. Her markings began to glow again. Brighter this time. She whispered, words in her alien tongue. Energy swirled faintly around her. "What are you doing?" Evan asked, alarmed. "I was trained not just to serve," she said softly, "but to protect. I've held this power back for too long." Her hands lit up with bluish fire. Pure bioenergy. It danced across her fingertips. She stepped forward, her voice strong now. "I will not be hunted anymore." She raised her arms and released the energy in a blinding wave. It hit the forest like a storm. The trees shook and the final 2 mercenaries were thrown back, stunned and screaming. When the light faded, silence returned. Birds flew from the trees. Leaves fell gently around them. Evan stared at her, stunned. What was that?" She dropped to her knees, gasping. "Something they tried to take from me, but I held on to it." He rushed to her side, catching her before she fell. "Don't pass out on me now." Shali smiled weakly. "I won't. Not until you're safe." They sat together beneath the trees, surrounded by fallen enemies and fading smoke. The fight was over for now. She leaned against him, her body shaking. "I would have died for you." Evan looked at her gently. "You lived for me." "That's stronger." He wrapped his arms around her. No more walls, no more hiding. In that moment, they didn't need words, because the bond between them was now sealed. Not by blood, not by duty, but by choice. The wind whispered through the trees as the sun dipped low, painting the sky with shades of fire. Evan and Shali sat beside each other near the bunker's edge, their bodies aching, clothes stained with dirt and blood. But they were alive. Together. Breathing. After everything. Evan tightened a bandage around his arm, wincing as he pulled it. Shali, now dressed in his spare jacket, sat cross-legged, silent. Her glowing skin had dimmed again, hiding the power that had shaken the forest. But her eyes were sharper now. Focused. Ready. "They'll come back," she said at last, voice calm. "And this time, not just hunters." Evan nodded. "They'll send someone bigger, someone official." Shali looked out across the trees. "They will want to erase the shame. The fact I'm still breathing is dangerous to them." He looked at her. "Then we make them remember why that was a mistake." They moved quickly. Evan gathered every tool, every charge, every bit of energy cell he had stashed over the years. Wires stretched through the trees, traps hidden beneath leaves, motion sensors fixed into the ground. This time, he wouldn't just survive. He'd defend. Shali took one of the mercenary suits and stripped it of its tech, salvaging the power core, connecting it to her body through her inner circuits. She winced as the biolink snapped into place, but her body straightened as energy pulsed through her again. She was more than just a slave. She had once been trained as a royal guardian, and she was done hiding. While they worked, the forest grew, quiet again, too quiet. Evan could feel the hum in the air. A ship was coming, a bigger one. By sunset, the stars blinked into the sky, and from above, a sound like a deep howl echoed. The royal fleet had found her. A sleek, black gunship hovered over the treetops. Spotlights cut across the woods. Speakers crackled. "This is Fleet Captain Rezer of the Solari Dominion. Surrender the escaped subject immediately and you will not be harmed." Evan laughed dryly. "They always lie like that?" Shali stood beside him. "Only when they're afraid." He looked at her and said, "One last fight?" She nodded. "One last stand." The ship lowered, soldiers dropping from ropes, tall, armored, and glowing with red visors. 10 of them, fully equipped. Evan took position behind a stone wall and triggered the first trap. The forest lit up with sparks. 2 soldiers were blasted back into trees. Screams followed. Shali moved like a shadow between the trees. She struck, asked dagger in one hand, raw energy in the other. Her movements were graceful and brutal. Every strike reminded them she was not prey, she was the storm. But they kept coming. Evan ducked behind cover, shooting bolt after bolt. His arm bled again. His legs were numb from kneeling too long. One soldier charged him, blade raised, but before it could reach him, a wave of blue light slammed it aside. Shali stood between Evan and the attacker, her body glowing, her eyes burning. "You don't touch him," she growled. "Traitor," one soldier barked. "You dare fight your own kind?" "I fight for what's right," she shouted back, "not for those who feed children to war machines." The words shook the air. For a moment, even the soldiers paused. Then from the ship above, a new figure descended. Tall, dressed in black, armor with a silver crest, Fleet Captain Rezer. He stepped forward, ignoring the chaos, and looked at Shali. "You were a servant," he said coldly. "Not a warrior. You are nothing." Shali stood tall. "Then why are you here with an army?" His eyes narrowed. She stepped forward, holding Evan's hand without fear. "You tried to erase me. You threw me away like mud. But this human picked me up, cleaned me, cared for me. And now I remember who I am." Rezer scoffed. "You are property of the throne." "No," she said. "I am the blood daughter of the late queen's sister, and that throne you defend was never yours to protect." The soldiers hesitated. Rezar's expression cracked. "I have the seal," she said calmly, lifting the carved stone from around her neck. Evan recognized it. He'd seen it in the old files, royal blood mark. One soldier stepped back. "She speaks truth." Rezer roared and charged forward, but Shali met him halfway. Her hands lit with blinding energy. His blade clashed against her power. Sparks flew. Evan fired one last shot, straight into Rezer's leg. The captain stumbled. Shali didn't wait. She drove her dagger through his chest plate, power surging through it. He collapsed with a scream, and silence followed. The other soldiers dropped their weapons. No more orders. No more lies. Just truth. Shali turned to Evan, chest heaving, face glowing with quiet pride. "It's over," he smiled. "No, it's just the beginning." She nodded. Together. And the stars above finally watched in silence, not as masters looking down, but as witnesses to a girl once left in the mud, now standing tall beside a human who refused to let her break. The smoke had cleared. The night was calm again. Shali stood at the edge of the battlefield, her silver hair drifting in the breeze, her body lit by the faint blue glow of her markings. Around her, the soldiers of the Solari Dominion lowered their weapons and dropped to their knees, not in fear but in respect. The fallen captain, Rezer, lay still beside the burning wreckage of the royal gunship. She had won. Not just a fight, but her identity, her right to live, to choose. Evan limped toward her, his arm still wrapped in blood-stained cloth, his steps uneven from the long night. But when he reached her, he smiled through the pain. "You all right?" he asked. She turned to him and nodded. "Yes, because you didn't give up on me." He chuckled. "You think I came all this way to stop halfway?" The soldiers behind them began to rise slowly. One of them, a younger Solari, stepped forward. He removed his helmet and bowed low. "Princess Shali, the truth is known now. The throne has no heir. With your seal and your blood, you are next in line." Shali didn't speak right away. Her eyes shifted to Evan. He looked surprised. "Princess?" he asked softly. She gave him a half smile. "I didn't tell you everything. I wasn't just a servant. I was royalty raised in shadow, hidden to protect me, until they thought I was useful enough to control. And now?" he asked. "Now I'm free," she said. The Solari soldier continued. "The throne is yours. You would rule over 5 worlds. We are ready to serve." But Shali didn't answer right away. She looked at the stars above, then down at the mud beneath her boots. It reminded her of who she had been only days ago, covered in dirt, chained, abandoned. She had almost died alone. And yet, here she was, alive, because of a human who offered her nothing but kindness. She turned back to Evan. "Come with me." He blinked. "What?" "If I take the throne," she said, voice quiet but sure, "I want you beside me. Not as a servant, not as a guard, as my equal." He hesitated, eyes wide. "Me? In a palace? I can barely fix my own roof." She stepped closer. "You fixed something greater. You fixed me." Evan's heart beat faster. "I don't belong in a palace." "Then I don't want one," she said. "Let them build a new kind of throne, where rulers remember what it means to be thrown away." The Solari watched in silence, unsure of what was happening. But Shali didn't care for their confusion. "I won't wear crowns of gold," she told them. "I'll wear scars of truth. And if I rule, I'll rule with the human who made me feel alive again." Evan stepped beside her, still unsure, still human. But when her hand touched his, something clicked in his heart. He had lived alone for so long, fixing machines, avoiding the world. But now, this woman, this warrior, this survivor, wanted to share her life with him. "I'm no king," he said softly. "You don't need to be," she replied. "Just don't walk away." He didn't. Instead, he nodded. "Then let's build something better." Shali turned to her people. "I will return to the Solari. I will speak truth. Change how we treat the voiceless, but I will not rule alone. You will not follow a crown. You will follow a bond." One by one, the soldiers bowed. Evan felt like an outsider. But when Shali looked at him, he felt like he belonged to something greater than a race or planet. He belonged to her story, and she belonged to his. Weeks passed. The forests were left behind. The bunker stood empty, quiet. In the capital of the Solari system, a new palace rose. Not tall and cold, but warm and open, made with both alien crystal and human steel. A symbol of unity. Shali walked its halls in simple robes, never forgetting her past. Her orders freed slaves, tore down the royal labs, and brought justice to the forgotten. Evan worked nearby, fixing transport ships, teaching young Solari children how to build things with their hands. He never wore armor. But everyone knew he was the one who pulled their princess from the mud and gave her a reason to stand tall. At night, they sat together under the twin moons, hands intertwined. "You still miss the forest?" she asked him once. "Sometimes," he said, smiling. "But not the mud." She laughed, soft and real. "That mud saved me." "No," he replied. "You saved yourself. I just reminded you how." And as the stars above watched once again, they no longer looked down on a broken alien girl or a lonely human man. They looked down on something stronger. Two souls who found each other in ruin and built something whole.